Hello 3D printing friends. Today on the BV3D channel we'll talk about some fairly serious issues with the Creality Cloud platform. Stick around and we'll get into it right after this. I'm Brian and you are watching BV3D. This episode of the BV3D channel is brought to you in part by these awesome channel members. Hi, welcome back. Hey, if you're new here and you're wanting to learn about 3D printing, 3D modeling, and other 3D printing related stuff, start now by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Creality Cloud. In particular, the issue of intellectual property theft related to the 3D models being hosted there. It's an issue that's really been blowing up on the 3D printing Twitter, starting a couple of weeks ago with Stian Agetbiz calling out Creality Cloud for promoting their service using his models that had been uploaded to the service by other users. Now, other designers found several instances of their models on the site as well, and many complained that despite reporting the copyright infringement to Creality Cloud over and over, they're still seeing their models available on the Creality Cloud service. Now, at one point, Creality Cloud's response on Twitter was just to start blocking people who were calling them out on the issue. They even went so far as to block Naomi Wu, who several years ago pushed hard for Creality to open source the Ender 3 and abide by the terms of the Marlin firmware license, successfully getting Creality to release the source code for several of their printers. And more recently, of course, she was responsible for getting the Creality CR30 conveyor belt printer, aka Naomi Wu's 3D print mill, to market. So yeah, they blocked her when she asked them to please provide a copy of the license for the digital models the artists allege are stolen. You can do it right here. The blocking is the Twitter version of sticking your fingers in your ears and saying, la 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 la, I can't hear you. It's not a super professional response. Now they've since unblocked the accounts that they had blocked, but now when they tweet, they've got replies turned off, so you really can't interact with them there. As a result of all the attention, one thing they did do is add a page to their GitHub listing the models they've taken down. It's like a daily status update. But why GitHub? Why not a page on their own service? Who knows? But even with that GitHub page, it's really hard to tell what the models were. You can only see the URL where the model used to be and what the uploader had named it. Another issue is that Creality Cloud has a feature where a user can upload all of their models from Thingiverse to the Creality Cloud service simply by providing their Thingiverse username. Literally, just a valid Thingiverse username. No password. Is there anything to stop a Creality Cloud user from sucking in any random Thingiverse user's models? Well, there's a checkbox that basically says, I certify that this stuff is mine. Now, once the ridiculousness of that had been pointed out on Twitter, Creality Cloud did say they were adding a validation system, so you presumably have to provide a password for the Thingiverse account you're trying to import. Now, over on the Creality Cloud site, they've got a post titled, Let's Help Protect Creators. It details how they've rolled out a set of Creative Commons licenses, and now, when a user uploads a file, they're forcing all users to choose a license type. Is this really about protecting creators? It doesn't seem like it based on the way they've been handling the situation. But why is it like that? Why does it seem there are just exponentially more infringing models on the site compared to other model repositories? Well, I want to take a moment to look at the history of Creality Cloud, or at least my experience with it. Currently, Creality Cloud is in its 4th revision, but I think the root of the issue really started way back at the very beginning of the service. Let's go back in time about 2 years. Sometime around the middle of 2020, Creality released what they were calling the Creality Box, or the Creality Wi-Fi Box. It's this little $20 device that you connect to your home network and to a 3D printer. It allows you to control a 3D printer from a mobile device. But unlike a Raspberry Pi running Octoprint, it's not something you can connect to on your local network, even though it lives on your local network. It 100% has to have an internet connection, because it was designed specifically to connect to the Creality Cloud service. At the time, again mid-2020, Creality Cloud was only accessible via an iOS or Android app. There was no website you could interact with. The Wi-Fi box connected your printer to the Creality Cloud service, and the Creality Cloud app on your mobile device was the conduit through which you could control the printer. When you wanted to print an STL file, it worked something like this. First, you'd have to somehow transfer that STL file to your mobile device. Then, using the Creality Cloud app, you'd create a model group, which is analogous to a Thingiverse thing. It's a single entry that can contain one or more STL files. You'd give the model group a name, select an STL file from your device's file system, and upload it. Once uploaded, you'd use the app to slice the file and then send it to print via the Wi-Fi box. It was a cumbersome process because, again, there was no website to interact with. Literally, the only way to get an STL file printed was to transfer it to your mobile device, then fill out a form in the Creality Cloud app to create a model group, upload the file, then slice it, and then finally it would start printing. But there was another way to get a file to print, and it was easier. See, you could also use the Creality Cloud app to browse the service, and that worked pretty much like Thingiverse, a scrolling, never-ending list of printable files that other people had gone to the trouble of uploading. You want to print a Benchy? There were dozens to choose from. You want an XYZ calibration cube? There's probably 100 or more. And the weird thing was, some had the right names, others were just called test or something similar, and nearly all of the descriptions were blank. But why were there so many of them, and why were they so weirdly named? Because getting an STL file printed using the Creality Wi-Fi box was such a colossal effort that people were taking the path of least resistance. Create a new model group and give it the shortest name possible. Blow past the description, leaving it blank. Hunt around on your device for the file, upload it, then slice it, then print it. But here's the thing that nobody using this service seemed to be paying attention to. The default setting for anything uploaded to the Creality Cloud service was to share it with everybody else on the service. And it's like nobody noticed, or nobody cared. I think users thought they were uploading a file just for themselves to print, so they were just filling out the bare minimum they needed to get the file up into the service and then down into their printer. One side effect of that share it with the world setting is that there were numerous, shall we say, non-family friendly models that were frequently populating the available files. A year and a half ago, I was working on a script to review the Wi-Fi box, but in the end I never recorded the video because there were several technical issues with the entire system. But in that script I noted the potential for a really big problem. With every item defaulting to being shared, and nobody paying attention to that setting, what happens when a person buys an STL file from a designer who makes their living selling such files and uploads it for printing, taking that path of least resistance? Well, those paid STL files leak out into the wild. Suddenly a model you used to have to pay $20 for, you could find for free on Creality Cloud and then slice and print it. And when that happens, the designer's no longer getting paid to make those cool models. Now their source of income is in jeopardy, all because of a default setting to make uploads public. Now, I thought that was the root cause of the entire situation, because that was a deliberate design decision on the part of Creality. But you know what? It's still like that today. Even in the current version of the Creality Cloud app, even in the current Creality Cloud website. So originally, it may have been that the users were unintentionally making paid models available publicly. But now, Creality Cloud is incentivizing public uploads with a token system and storage quotas. If you upload models and mark them private, it counts against your storage quota, but if you make the model public, it doesn't. When everything is shared publicly, Creality can claim they have a huge number of models available on the service. And yes, Creality Cloud can claim that every time someone reports a copyright infringement issue, they'll look at it and remove the model if it's infringing. But they only remove the one reported instance of the model. If there are 20 instances of it uploaded to the service, the designer has to find and report each and every one of them to Creality Cloud. Now, instead of spending their time designing cool models, they have to spend time scouring the Creality Cloud service, reporting each infringing model, and then following up to make sure it's been taken down. And they have to keep doing this forever, because users keep uploading the models. Because when the only repercussion of uploading a copyright infringing model is the remote possibility of having that model deleted, there's nothing to stop users from continually uploading that same model again right after it's been deleted. Okay, I can't just rage against Creality Cloud without offering suggestions for improvement. So here's what I think Creality Cloud needs to do. It's just a couple of things, really. 1. When a model is reported as an infringing model, every instance of that model needs to be removed. Regardless of what it's named or who uploaded it, that file is going to have a very specific number of bytes, and it's going to have a very specific checksum. It shouldn't be too hard for Creality Cloud to search for similar items in the services database and compare them to a reported model to remove them. 2. Change the default setting so uploads are private. Make it so that a user has to specifically mark a file for sharing with the world. 3. Implement a 3 strikes and you're out policy for Creality Cloud users. If you get caught uploading copyrighted material 3 times, your account is terminated. And Creality Cloud needs to have some way to prevent users from just creating multiple accounts. Otherwise, what good would it do? Naomi Wu suggests Facebook, Twitter, and Google logins only, and banning any Creality Cloud user who uploads stolen files. Make all accounts verify and delete the ones that don't. And I think that's a great idea. It shouldn't be hard to authenticate an account with Facebook or Twitter or Google. I see services that work like that all the time, like on Tinkercad, where you can click to sign in with Google, and that's your identity on the site. That would help cut down on the possibility of people having what amounts to throwaway accounts on Creality Cloud. And 4. This one is something that Creality isn't going to like at all, but I think it needs to be done. Set every model to private effective now, and notify every Creality Cloud user that this is being done. If a user actually intended to share a model with the world, they can go through and set it public again. As of right now, the 3D printing community on Twitter is upset with Creality Cloud's poor handling of the issues to date, and frankly, I think it's justified. Even now, Creality Cloud's Twitter account is still snarky about it. A recent tweet from that account promoting the ability to sell models on their service had a follow-up tweet from them saying, "And yes, the model in the poster is designed by us." As it stands, Creality Cloud is removing anywhere between a few and a few dozen infringing models per day. Creality Cloud makes a point to say they're humans and not AIs and can't be trained to recognize every model automatically. But in a 5-minute span, I found 11 examples of MacGyver's articulated dragon on the Chinese side of the Creality Cloud site. And same old Shane on Twitter has been on a mission in his spare time identifying and reporting hundreds of infringing models. So clearly it's not that hard. Some people are calling for a boycott of Creality, or stopping reviews of their products. Creality had sent me their oddly named ScanLizard 3D scanner for review, but that project is the subject of an intellectual property lawsuit regarding the software supplied with it, so that's still in the box. There's literally no point in reviewing something that arguably the software is the component that actually makes it do what it does. And that software is likely going to change significantly as a result of the suit. They also sent me their Sprite direct drive extruder upgrade kit for the Ender 3 series printers. This is the extruder on the Ender 3 S1 Pro with the all-metal hot end. And that's still in the box and won't be reviewed unless and until Creality can get the Creality Cloud copyright situation resolved. But speaking of the Ender 3 S1 Pro, I received one from PurGear to review. Now this situation's difficult to navigate, and I know no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to please everybody. PurGear is a reseller, and they sent the printer to me in good faith expecting it to be reviewed. And that one I'm still intending to proceed with. The Creality Cloud issue isn't PurGear's fault, and I need to honor my agreement with PurGear to review that printer. So, question time. Do you think the Creality Cloud service represents a new direction for Creality in the 3D printing space? Do you think Creality Cloud's business model is Phase 1, steal copyrighted models, Phase 2, Phase 3, profit? Or is this an innocent screw-up? What do you think about the behavior of Creality Cloud's social media accounts? I mean, Wendy's Twitter account is known for its burns against competitors, but Creality Cloud's burns seem to be targeted at customers. And last, if Creality can change the Creality Cloud service, implementing those suggestions from a few minutes ago, do you think they have a shot at redeeming themselves, or is that service a lost cause at this point? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you do comment, please keep in mind this is a family-friendly channel and try to keep your comments civil. It's possible to state strong opinions without resorting to profanity. Now, one more thing I want to mention is I'm trying to put together a list of links to some awesome designers. So look in the description for that. And if your favorite designer isn't there, leave a comment with some info about them. Now, YouTube is going to automatically put comments containing links into a held for moderation list, but I'll approve those comments and add the designers to the list in the description. Well, 3D printing friends, that's about all the time we have for this episode. And now that we're at the end, let's go print something cool. Hey, real quick before you go, I wanted to say thanks for being one of the super awesome people who sticks around all the way to the end, and thanks for all the likes, comments, and shares. And an especially big thanks to those who directly support what I do. You're all wonderful for doing that, and I really appreciate it. If you liked this episode, a thumbs up would be great, and if you'd like to help support the channel, check the description for ways you can do exactly that. And hey, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It's absolutely free, and it's an excellent way to help keep me making these videos for you. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time here on the BV3D channel.